Can a lawyer be held responsible, like really accountable, for just notarizing a document?
Ah, that's a great question.
Like, what if, the document is part of some shady deal?
Right, right.
Well, there's this Supreme Court case here in the Philippines, kind of went viral.
Oh, yeah.
And it really dives into that.
It does, this idea of, how much power that notary seal actually has.
Yeah.
We're looking at the case of heir of Hermenegildo A. Unite, represented by his sole heir Florentino S. Unite, and heir of Odilon Unite Torreses, represented by sole heir Miguel B. Torreses, complainants versus Addy, Raymond P. Guzman, respondent.
Okay.
This is officially AC, no, 13636, decided on February 22, 2023.
So that's a lot.
Yeah.
So for those of us who maybe aren't lawyers, could you break it down?
Sure.
Who are these people? What's this, AC? No.
So AC no just means administrative case no. It's basically a specific type of case that deals with complaints against lawyers.
Okay.
In this particular case, we have the complainants. Florentino S. Unite and Miguel B. Torreses.
Okay.
They are the heirs of Teodor A. Unite, who unfortunately passed away without a will back in 2005.
Okay.
Dying without a will, legally, means to die intestate.
Okay.
So these heirs are accusing Ati, Guzman,
Right.
the respondent, of basically not doing his job as a notary
Okay.
when it comes to a certain deed that involves Teodora's land.
Gotcha.
So we've got some family drama, a piece of land involved.
Yeah, sounds like it can get messy.
Absolutely.
Tell me a little bit more about the deed.
So the document that we're talking about is called a deed of donation inter vivos.
Okay.
And this is a legal document where someone, while they're alive,
Okay.
gives away ownership of their property as a gift.
Ooh.
This deed was signed in November 2010.
Okay.
And it transferred a portion of Teodora's land from her nephew, Jose Unite Torreses, to his daughter, Cecile Yvonne B. Torreses.
So the nephew's giving away a portion of his aunt's land to his daughter.
Exactly.
Okay. Sounds a little suspicious.
Yeah, and that's where the complainants come in.
Okay.
They're alleging that Jose actually got this land from Teodora through another faulty deed of donation inter vivos.
Okay.
They believe that he tricked Teodora, his own aunt, into signing away her land.
Oh, wow.
And then illegally transferred part of it to Cecile.
Wow. That's a serious accusation.
It is.
And so this is where Adi Guzman and his notary seal comes into play.
Yeah, exactly. The complainants is saying that Adi Guzman didn't do his due diligence as a notary and didn't properly verify the identities of everyone who signed the deed.
Okay.
Which, as you can imagine, that's a big deal.
Yeah, so it's not just about the piece of land, it's about, like, the process.
Right. It brings into question the integrity of the entire process.
Exactly, yeah.
And, the notary seal, like you said,
Right.
that's there to guarantee that the folks signing the document are who they say they are.
Right.
If that trust is broken, well, it can have major consequences.
All right, so let's talk about how all of this played out in court. Where did it begin?
So initially, the complainants filed a several case.
Okay.
This was back in 2015 at the Regional Trial Court of Balestros, Cagayan. They wanted to have that deed of donation inter vivos canceled and get Teodora's land back.
So did the Regional Trial Court make a decision?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Before a decision could be reached, this case actually went through the Integrated Bar of the Philippines.
Okay.
The IBP, it's the organization that regulates lawyers here.
Right, right.
Two specific bodies within the IBP got involved, the Commission on Bar Discipline, or the IBP-CBD, and the Board of Governors, or IBP-BOG.
Gotcha. So multiple layers of legal review.
Exactly.
What did they say? What did the IBP had to say about Adi Guzman?
So the IBP-CBD had some pretty strong feelings. They recommended that his notarial commission be revoked.
Oh, wow.
Meaning he wouldn't be able to be a notary anymore. And that he'd be disqualified from being a notary public for a whole year.
Okay, so some serious repercussions there.
Absolutely.
What about the IBP-BO? Did they agree with that?
So initially, they actually upped the ante. They decided to add a 6-month suspension from practicing law.
Wow. Okay, so they really felt like he had messed up.
Yeah.
But you said initially, so what happened?
Well, Adi Guzman filed what's called a motion for reconsideration. Basically asking them to think about it again.
Right.
And surprisingly, they ended up dismissing the whole case against him.
Wait, what? So they went from, like, suggesting suspension to just dropping the case?
Right.
There must be a reason.
Right.
What was it?
Their conclusion was that Adi Guzman had substantially complied with the 2004 rules on notarial practice.
Okay.
And these rules, they lay out all the things a notary is supposed to do
Right.
to make sure everything is above board.
So they felt like even if he had made some mistakes, they weren't, like, serious.
Right.
Okay.
But, of course, the legal drama doesn't stop there.
Right.
This case then moves on to the Supreme Court.
Yes, this is what I've been waiting for.
And that's where things take a bit of a dramatic turn.
What happened?
So the Supreme Court actually overturned the IBP-BOG's dismissal,
Okay.
and they found that Guzman did fail to properly verify the identities of those involved in the deed.
So the Supreme Court sided with the complainants.
They did.
Okay.
And to really understand why, we have to look at the evidence
Okay,
and the arguments that the Supreme Court considered.
Yeah, let's dive in.
So first of all, they pointed out that the deed of donation inter vivos didn't actually have any proper identification for Cecile
Okay.
and another individual named Lolita.
Okay.
The only identification information they had was Jose's tax identification number or his TIN.
So no real proof that Cecile or Lolita were who they claimed to be.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see why the Supreme Court wasn't happy.
Right. To make matters worse, Guzman argued that he personally knew Jose, so he didn't think he needed more identification.
Okay.
But this wasn't clearly stated anywhere in the deed.
It's amazing how something so, like, seemingly simple can have such a big consequence.
You got it. And to try and fix this, Jose later submitted an affidavit, a sworn statement, with copies of his ID.
Mm-hmm.
But the Supreme Court said that wasn't enough.
Oh, wow.
Because the initial notarization, it was already flawed.
So they were already trying to clean up a mess.
Right, exactly.
Was there anything else that came up?
Yeah, the complainants also brought up a Bureau of Immigration certification.
Okay.
This certification suggested that Cecile was actually out of the country when the deed was signed.
Okay.
However, the Supreme Court dismissed this piece of evidence because there was a name discrepancy on the certification.
Wow, so many twists and turns.
Right. So what happened?
What was the final verdict for Guzman? The Supreme Court, they didn't let him off easy.
Okay. They suspended him from practicing law for 2 years and permanently disqualified him from being a notary public.
That's a harsh sentence.
It was, and what makes it even more significant is this wasn't Guzman's first run-in with these notarial rules.
Oh, no, really?
This was actually his third violation.
Okay.
The Supreme Court even referenced 2 previous cases, Heir of Unite v. Guzman, AC Notes 1261 and 1262, to show that he had a history of being negligent.
Wow. 3 strikes, you're out, as they say.
Right.
This really shows that even those small oversights can have huge consequences.
Absolutely, especially when it comes to these legal documents.
Yes.
And it highlights how important it is for notaries to really do their due diligence.
Right.
And follow the rules.
Yeah, so what does all this mean for us, for the listener? What can we learn?
Well, I think first of all, it underscores the point that even those routine legal tasks like notarization, they really carry a lot of weight.
Right.
It's a bit of a wake-up call, I think, for anyone who's handling these important documents.
Don't cut corners.
Exactly.
Make sure everything is done right.
And it's not just about avoiding legal trouble. It's also about protecting yourself, protecting your clients, and protecting the integrity of the whole system.
This is really making me think. I'm sure our listeners have a lot to say about this. Do you think the punishment fit the crime? What kind of impact could this ruling have on other professionals who handle sensitive documents? Share your thoughts in the comments.
We'd love to hear from you.
And don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep diving deep into these fascinating legal cases with us. We'll be right back after a short break with even more insights on this landmark case. So before the break, we were talking about how the Supreme Court was pretty tough on Guzman.
Right.
They even cited those past cases
to
show that, like, this wasn't just a one-time slip-up, a pattern of negligence.
Exactly.
It really makes you wonder, beyond this case, what kind of impact could this have?
Right.
Like, on the legal world,
It sends a very clear message, I think, to all legal professionals, especially notaries, that the courts are really serious about this stuff. Like, you got to be careful. They're going to hold you accountable for your actions or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
And it just really underscores how important that notary seal is.
Yeah.
And how even, it might seem like a small thing to not verify someone's ID.
Right.
But it can have huge consequences.
It's like, be extra careful.
Right.
Dot your I's. Cross your T's.
Exactly.
It's not even just for lawyers and notaries.
Right.
This kind of applies to anyone who's dealing with important documents.
Any professional, you got to have those verification procedures. You got to have a culture of due diligence.
Yeah, especially now.
Especially in a world where, right, with identity theft.
Fraud is so prevalent.
Yeah, it's a good reminder for all of us.
Absolutely.
So to understand the Supreme Court's decision a little better.
Okay. Let's look at some of the key legal doctrines that they relied on.
Sure.
One of the big ones was the 2004 Rules on Notarial Practice.
Yeah.
Can you break those down for us?
Okay.
Like, what are the key takeaways for, people who maybe aren't lawyers?
So these rules, they basically spell out, like, what a notary is supposed to do, what they can and can't do, what their responsibilities are.
Right.
And a really important part of those rules is the requirement for what's called competent evidence of identity.
Okay.
Which basically means that the notary has to verify the identity of everyone who's signing a document. And they have to do it using official identification.
So you can't just take someone's word for it. You need to see an ID, basically.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And the rules are very specific about what counts
Okay.
as acceptable proof of identity.
Right.
So we're talking about things like passports, driver's licenses, a government-issued ID.
But in this case, Putty, Guzman said that he personally knew who say...
Right.
So he didn't think he needed to ask for ID.
Right.
So where does that fit in?
So that brings us to another legal concept that's important here.
Okay.
Called personal knowledge.
Okay.
And the rules do allow a notary to, sort of waive that requirement for additional ID.
Okay.
If they personally know the person signing.
Okay.
But personal knowledge has a very specific legal definition.
Right.
It's not just like, all right, I bumped into this guy at the store. It means you have like a deep understanding of this person. You've interacted with them. You have a history of knowing this person.
It's a level of trust.
Right.
That goes beyond, just a surface.
Exactly. Exactly. And in this case, the Supreme Court didn't really buy Addy.
Okay.
Guzman's claim of personal knowledge.
Yeah.
Remember those missing IDs for Cecile and Nolita?
Right.
That was a big red flag.
Yeah.
And he didn't even document it anywhere.
Wow.
In the deed itself.
So even if you think you know someone, you better document it.
Yes.
Make sure you're following all the right procedures.
Precisely.
Because if you're not, you can get in trouble.
Right. You can, like Hattie, Guzman.
So another big concept that played a role here was negligence.
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Sure.
How did that factor into the Supreme Court's ruling?
So in legal terms, negligence basically means you didn't exercise the level of care that a reasonable person would in a similar situation.
Okay.
And the Supreme Court said that Guzman didn't meet that standard of care.
So it's not just about intentionally doing something wrong.
Right.
You could also just be careless.
Exactly. It could be an accident.
Yeah.
But if you weren't careful enough, you can still be in trouble.
And especially for professionals like lawyers, right?
Especially.
Because they're held to a higher standard.
Right. And their actions can have a big impact on other people's lives.
It goes back to that responsibility of the notary seal.
Exactly.
It's not just a formality. It's a symbol of trust.
Of trust.
Of accountability.
Absolutely.
And the Supreme Court really, I think, is sending a powerful message about that.
They are.
So what are some of the broader implications here?
Yeah.
How do you see these, impacting the legal world?
I think, we could see stricter regulations, better training for notaries, maybe even new technologies to prevent fraud and ensure accuracy.
It's amazing how one case can really, spur all this.
It's a ripple effect.
Yeah.
It shows how interconnected things really are. So what are your final thoughts on this case?
As we kind of wrap up
our deep dive, I think it's a powerful reminder that even those seemingly routine tasks can have far-reaching consequences. So be meticulous. Prioritize integrity.
Trust is earned.
It is.
Through, those responsible actions.
Right.
This case definitely highlights that.
It does.
Now, we want to hear from you.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on this ruling?
What are the implications?
Yeah, share your comments.
Let's keep the conversation going.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe for more insightful explorations
of the legal world.
We'll be right back to wrap up this case after a quick message. We've been talking about this Supreme Court case, about the lawyer and the notary seal.
Yeah, it really makes you think about all the responsibility that comes with these legal tasks, even the simple ones.
We talked about the rules, the mistakes that were made, even the impact this could have, on other professions.
Absolutely.
But there's something else I think we need to talk about.
Okay.
The ethics of it all.
Yeah, that's an important piece of this.
It's not just about following the law, right?
Right. It's about the spirit of the law.
Yeah.
The ethical obligations that come with being a lawyer.
Yeah. Because lawyers, they have a special role
They do.
in our
They're
society.
officers of the court.
Right,
They
exactly.
have to uphold the integrity of the whole system.
So it's not just about winning, it's about making sure everything's fair.
Exactly.
That the process is just,
Right.
and the Code of Professional Responsibility,
Yeah.
it lays out all these ethical guidelines for lawyers, right?
It does. Talks about honesty, fairness.
Yeah.
Being faithful to the law.
It goes beyond just, winning or losing a case.
Absolutely.
It's about doing the right thing.
It's about integrity.
Yeah.
Even when it's tough.
And so this case, it makes us wonder about Wadi. Guzman.
Right.
Did he violate the code? Was he intentionally dishonest? Or was it just, carelessness?
Some people might say, well, honest mistake.
Right.
Others might say, well, he was negligent multiple times.
Yeah, it wasn't just a one-time thing.
Exactly.
So it's complicated.
It is.
There's a lot to think about.
It highlights how tricky it can be sometimes.
Right.
To make those ethical decisions.
This case also makes me think about trust.
Right.
That notary seal, it's supposed to represent like authenticity,
Yeah.
reliability.
Truth.
What happens when that trust is broken?
It can be really damaging,
Yeah.
Trust is the foundation of our legal system. When people start to lose faith in that, well,
It's like a domino effect.
it is. It can impact everything.
So we've talked a lot about Adi Guzman,
Mm-hmm.
his responsibility,
Right.
but were there like any systemic issues here?
That's a good question.
Could this have happened to anyone?
It's possible, right?
Yeah.
We have to think about the pressures
Yeah.
on lawyers, the training they receive.
Is there enough supervision?
Exactly.
Like if there are problems within the system,
Yeah.
they're going to show up eventually.
It's like a fish rotting from the head down.
Right?
This case really encourages us to think bigger.
Yeah.
Look beyond just one person.
Yeah.
Are there ways to make the system better?
So it's not about blaming individuals. It's about recognizing that everyone plays a role.
Absolutely.
We need to work together
We do.
to build a system that promotes ethical behavior.
A culture of accountability.
This has been such a fascinating conversation.
It really has.
I hope our listeners have, learned something,
Me too.
been inspired to think critically about these issues.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts.
Share your comments. Let's keep talking about this.
And if you enjoyed this deep dive,
Yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe.
we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us.